this is 122 to 125, and the question is that Part 2 stand part. Phil Twyford.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. I want to make some comments about Part 2 of the bill, which amends the Local Government Auckland Transitional Provisions Act 2010, and it puts in place a framework for the development of the first combined plan for Auckland Council, the known publicly, I think, as the draft, currently as the draft Auckland Unitary Plan. Specifically what it does is it establishes a fast-tracked process for the Unitary Plan with the establishment of a hearings panel, kind of a one-stop shop hearings panel that takes the place of the normal RMA Environment Court appeals process. Now, Labor supports this provision, and we've made it very clear publicly since the Auckland Council asked the government to consider this back in December last year. We've given qualified support to the proposal for the fast tracking, and I'll tell the House why. The Unitary Plan is a very significant development, sir, in the life of the new amalgamated Auckland super city. The Unitary Plan is the successor to all the old district and regional plans, and people will remember that one plan for Auckland was one of the great selling points for the amalgamation that led to the Auckland super city being set up. It allows for an integrated approach to managing land use and managing growth in Auckland for the first time ever. And I think it's widely accepted, certainly on this side of the House, that this is one of the significant benefits of the amalgamation of all the old local territorial authorities in Auckland. The Unitary Plan is significant because it's the first time that Auckland has had a concerted, comprehensive and considered effort to manage its growth. And the growth of Auckland is and the poor regulatory framework that's existed until now is really at the heart of many of the big problems that are affecting Auckland, particularly around housing affordability being probably one of the worst. So the Unitary Plan contains a raft of measures for tackling affordable housing, and importantly, it deals with the problem of the constraints on land supply that lie beneath the very high prices for residential property in Auckland. And the history of that, sir, I think, is the old metropolitan urban limits, which were a fixed limit boundary around the city, and put that together with a failure over many years to intensify and build a sufficient quantity of new houses in Auckland, and given the forces of supply and demand, that was a recipe, unfortunately, for very high residential property prices that are plaguing Aucklanders to this day. So the big innovation in the Unitary Plan is really gets rid of the old metropolitan urban limit that Nick Smith has been railing against for months and months as such a terrible thing, without mentioning that the old metropolitan urban limit is gone. It's a dead duck. It is supplanted in the Unitary Plan. It's Nick Smith's convenient straw man to attack and try to blame Auckland Council for the current housing crisis, when in fact the draft Unitary Plan, which is the first or major kind of planning instrument of the new Auckland Council, gets rid of the metropolitan urban limits and replaces it with what the plan describes as the rural-urban boundary. And the important innovation here is that the rural-urban boundary really is a staged shifting of the city limits that successively introduces large volumes of greenfield land in a planned, staged fashion over the life of the 30-year plan that will bring quantities of greenfield land, that's right, and provide the land that's necessary for Auckland's growth and development. So that's a really important piece of the puzzle to understand, sir, that the unitary plan delivers in a staged, Mr Chairman, delivers in a staged, careful fashion the new greenfields land that Auckland needs for its growth and development. Not, as many National Party members, including Nick Smith, the current Minister of Housing, have called for, a kind of wholesale destruction of the city limits, a deregulation of the planning process whose effect would simply be to allow suburban sprawl to rip across the countryside to Whangarei in the north and down to Hamilton in the south. And that's the last thing that Aucklanders want to see. So that's a really important feature of the unitary plan. The essence of the proposal that Auckland Council brought to the government at the end of last year was a streamlining of the process around this plan. Under the existing law, the Auckland unitary plan could take between 7 and 10 years to bed in, given the scale and complexity of the plan, given all the rights of appeal under the Resource Management Act. It could be a decade before that bedding in process is complete. And it's my submission, sir, that is unacceptable for a number of reasons that I want to spell out. Auckland Council have undertaken a big public process of consultation and engagement. Part of the trade-off for limiting appeal rights to the Environment Court under the RMA was to front-end the plan-making process with an array of public meetings, online consultation, and I attended some of those meetings, and certainly there was a genuine concerted effort to engage with communities, to engage with stakeholders, and really democratise those early stages of the plan-making process. We've seen, it's been really interesting, I think, sir, we've seen with the Auckland Unitary Plan the first ever major public conversation in our country's biggest city about the future shape of the city. Now, you may not agree with the details of the plan, you may not like the way the town centres are categorised, you may not like the new proposed rules on intensification, you may not like the proposal for high-rise development in some town centres, and so on. But there's no doubt that this has been a groundbreaking process for Auckland, and the first time there has been a major public debate. And it's worth noting, I think, that in the pages of the New Zealand Herald every day and on the major television networks, these issues of urban development, of housing affordability, sprawl versus intensification, the relationship between transport and urban development, these are on the front pages of the newspaper and in our television and radio news bulletins almost every day. They are such a major feature of public debate. And I think that Len Brown and the Auckland Council deserve significant credit for opening up this conversation and leading in this way, in a way that we haven't seen, frankly, ever before in our lifetimes in Auckland. So one of the things that's most important, and I think that justifies the fast tracking, is that we have a housing crisis in Auckland right now. There's no doubt about it. We have some of the most unaffordable housing in the Western world. The unitary plan has, as I said, a raft of measures for dealing with housing affordability, and Auckland needs those now. So that, sir, is the first reason. What I would say is that it's been rather amusing to see the National Party's apparatchiks in East Auckland and the North Shore among sort of local government circles throwing themselves in front of the metaphorical bulldozer to try to stop and slow down the unitary plan process, when in Parliament the National Party's been wanting to speed it up and threatening Auckland Council with legislative intervention every day almost, and urging Auckland Council to speed up the very provisions that exist in this unitary plan, because the government's so scared about the macroeconomic impacts of the Auckland housing crisis. So that's by way of a digression, but Labor does support the fast tracking. A, the housing crisis deserves extraordinary measures. B, Auckland has already been through an election campaign, an extensive public process that went into the making of the Auckland plan, and as I said, also another process around the unitary plan. It could take 7 to 10 years, Mr Chairman. It could take another call. I'm seeking another call, Mr Chairman.
In the absence of a challenge, I'll give you another call, Mr.
That's very charitable of you, Mr Chairman. As I said, it could take between 7 and 10 years for this plan to be finally bedded down under the RMA, and so that is just too long for Aucklanders to have to put up with, and that's why we support the fast tracking. There are two issues on which the national government balked at Auckland Council's proposals, and the first is that Auckland Council proposed that that the unitary plan be given legal weight from notification. Now the plan has been through all its processes. It's going to be notified next month, I understand, and it goes out for people to then consider and respond to through the hearings panel and ultimately the Environment Court. But under the law, the RMA, prior to 2009, the plan would have had legal weight from notification. Now that doesn't mean it's operative, it doesn't mean it has legal effect, it means that it will be taken into account along with other operative plans when consenting decisions are being made. That's critical, particularly for the considering of consents for housing developments and affordable housing in light of the Auckland Council's urgent need to respond to the housing affordability crisis. So it would have been the case pre-2009, before National changed the law, that the plan would have had legal weight. Secondly, and that's why, sir, and it's worth noting that we had all the sort of theatrics from Nick Smith earlier in the year where he went rampaging around the place accusing Len Brown of destroying the dreams of Aucklanders for affordable housing, trying to shift the blame of the housing crisis onto Auckland Council because he was so desperate to try to have something that he could show that the government was doing something about housing affordability. Well, if they hadn't changed the law in 2009, this plan would have had legal weight from notification. Sir, and the other thing is that Auckland Council proposed that it should appoint the members of the hearings panel. After all, it is Aucklanders' plan. After all, Aucklanders, through their rates, will pay for this plan and everything that the plan entails. But no, this government, in its centralising kind of nanny state way, insisted on having sole prerogative to appoint the members of the hearings panel. And instead of Aucklanders being able to make that crucial decision, Amy Adams and Nick Smith, two South Island ministers from the comfort of their ministerial offices in Wellington, have hijacked this process by insisting that they have the exclusive right to appoint the members of the hearings panel. And I just think that is a real shame, sir, and it's sort of symptomatic of this government's troubled relationship with Auckland, that they didn't trust Auckland Council to appoint the members of the hearings panel, and in fact spurned Auckland Council's proposal that this appointment of the hearings panel should be done jointly by the government and by Auckland Council. So I think that is a real shame. It is Aucklanders' plan. They are paying for it. Why shouldn't the democratically elected Auckland Council be able to make that vital decision? That's typical of this government's arrogant and interfering approach, not only to local government generally, but particularly to Auckland, that they've insisted on keeping those powers to themselves. So, Mr Chairman, Labor supports the fast tracking of the plan, but we do think it's a shame that this government couldn't see its way to sharing the process of appointing the members of the hearings panel, and we think it's a shame that on the crucial issue of allowing the plan to have legal weight from notification, the government didn't go along with Auckland Council's proposal. And in fact, because of that, we've had to go through this whole palaver around the government's housing accords and special housing areas bill, which itself wouldn't have been necessary So this whole fuss that Nick Smith has taken us all through because the government didn't agree to the draft unitary plan having legal weight from notification. Now we've had to go through this whole special housing areas bill that Nick Smith has before the House currently, which all it does is cherry-pick aspects of the unitary plan, i.e. bringing in more greenfields land more quickly and fast-track consenting.
Claudette Hauiti.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Kia ora. I'm really excited